Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. Why is it so dark is probably the first question that you have on your minds at the moment. The second one is Jacob going to actually manage to find a way to properly light himself in this moment? The answer is no. No, I am not. I don't actually have my tripod and torch with me. Through a combined series of circumstances, one combined series of it was one circumstance. There was something that was going on, and I was quite late preparing to actually go off to Crawley, and I didn't want to delay things further, you could have said. Although actually, now that I think about it, I didn't even think I was going to be recording at this late, because soon after we left, actually, it started raining. And it was raining so much that it would have ruined my phone to actually record this. So now I think about it, it would not have mattered either way what I had done. And it's not that it's just stopped raining now, it's that I have actually been in a family dinner celebrating a birthday. I will leave it at that. Birthday person, I'm not going to dox you on the internet, but happy birthday to you, because I forgot to say it when we were actually there, even though it's not the birthday now, it was the celebration. You know what I mean. So, yeah. Here we go. Nice little patch of light here. My Ratatouille-spawned obsession of streetlights prevails. Thomas Edison might have found a fan in me at the time, if I hadn't known about the other stuff that he did. Anyways, let's see. So, that's why it is so late. But today is not really going to be too much of a summary, I don't think. Although I will say there is obviously I have to go over coming back from the holidays and such. I think the last time that I talked people through, I was in Schönbrunn Palace or something in Austria. I'm not sure if it was there. It was in it was the public gardens. No, we went to Schönbrunn afterwards. That was like the major event of the last day, because there was so much that was actually there. And we all had this included in one package actually. And it's given me an interest in the Holy Roman Empire, because I've realized that in history class we covered several figures from that particular dynasty, which, lasted for quite a long time. And yet it it lasted, what was it, like 800 years or something? Along those lines. So yeah, point is, I came across several figures from that dynasty several times, but I didn't realize that they were all connected that way. I say I came across them in history class, not that I've encountered them personally. Although we later found out that actually the heir of the Habsburgs, or whoever would be, actually apparently is a race driver now. I can't confirm that, because that was just something that who was it who said that? I can't remember which one of the guys it was who said that. One of them said it. They're into Formula 1, surprisingly. Well, again, at least two of them are. I hadn't really heard too many updates on Formula 1 at all until they started talking about it, so I guess it might be something that's followed a bit more closely, or just like that particular group has gravitated towards that, because obviously I only see them once a year. They see each other quite frequently. Even though one of them should be in Egypt by now. So, yeah, who knows. The summer may or may not be different. Frankly, I'm not sure about their regular comings and goings anymore. Although, I must say, I do envy the fact that they're still regularly meeting up, and still, they've opportunity to grow up together and such. And I'm not saying that I regret, leaving. I'm just saying that in general. It's like, oh yeah, that might have been an interesting thing. That's what happens when you move around a lot in your life. That you miss out on one essential thing. Not essential, but one thing people can mostly relate to is like, oh yeah, you grew up in one particular area, and ever since you were a baby or something, and then you grow up around the same people. And it's like, oh yeah, this is life. This is what life has to offer, to an extent. I think that might be why some people get into travel later on, because they've been in one place for so long. But yeah, I don't know. I missed out on that. I'm not saying that I, would change the life I've had. I mean, quite frankly, no, because if I had stayed in one place forever, I would not even actually met them at all, or before them, all the ones before them. So yeah, and of course, the series of circumstances I had actually brought me to where I am today and such. That's a whole other thing. As somebody who regularly does what ifs, the butterfly effect is very much on my mind. Which realized, speaking of what ifs, I have finished the special what if for the Butter Bunch that was meant for 500 subscribers, but now I guess is also meant for 2 years, because I completely forgot until today when I randomly searched up Feeling Like I'm Piccolo that song is now a year old and it was meant for like our first anniversary of the Butter Bunch. So yeah, we have we've been going for 2 years and a day now, and I completely forgot about that. Here I was again making it's kind of like with my actual 1,000 subscriber special I never actually did, but I still have the script for. I focused on, the year stuff and I guess also like everything else going on at the time, and just kept going through, because I know for a fact that I gained 1,000 subscribers for the first time when I was actually working on the musical and whatever. It's like a big thing. Did I just feel a drop on my head? That might have been from a tree. I hope it's not going to start raining again. But yeah, it's been a reflective week for me in general, actually, because obviously apart from resting and coming back, actually, the something else major actually happened that I talked about in different situations many times. Because I think it was the day after I got back, or maybe one more day after that, I'm not sure. And basically, wow, this is actually surprisingly well lit. It's well lit in it. I'm kidding. Yeah, so as I was saying, it's been surprisingly no, I forgot. Oh yeah. Yes, so the day afterwards, what happened was that Mona and I actually got back on the same day. We were on 2 different trips for 2 different reasons. I won't get into too much of hers because that's private. But yeah, she's back, and she was back on the same day. And we were preparing. We had planned to do a call, and it just so happened that something on her mind was the fact that the Mutant girl had a few issues with the writing. So of course, I'm there, mentally preparing myself, because Monet has roasted my prose writing before, in terms of one time I tried to turn Alphabet Academy into a prose thing. She came out with a narrative voice that didn't really work. I mean, rightfully so. It's not like it was exactly, exceptional. And both I and she actually knew that. But it kind of caught me off guard, and I was like, oh wait, no, we're gonna get into some very. That house is very shiny. Sorry, we're gonna get into some territory where it's gonna be like, oh no, my view of my show is gonna be entirely different. And granted, it wasn't really, but my view of how she responded to the show was different. I was instantly confused, because at one point we actually offered her to, Aiden really offered her to join the script writing process, because we've been talking about, we've been doing a lot of reviews recently. At that point, it was like, oh, okay, here, come and join our process. And she said at the time, no thanks, I would rather not, because I'm a fan of the show and I don't want the spoilers. So, but then eventually she agreed anyway, because they to look at the what was originally the movie, just to see if there was anything, and because she said that her memory was bad enough that she would forget what actually happened in it. But then afterwards, during this conversation, I actually asked her, what is it that drew her to the series, if she found there were issues that, in her words, people were not going to latch onto it as much, and that's why it wasn't going to be catching on. And then she said that if she was just a regular voice actor, and not involved with Buttercup, she probably wouldn't have kept up with it. She implied that would have been after the shift to Gacha Club, ironically, like, you know, the moments when I introduced like the feud between Julius and Reina that happens, and then also like the heat of season 2 actually happens and such. And yeah, so that struck me as odd just because of what she'd said before about spoilers and everything. Particularly because season 2 is the one that you really don't want the spoilers for. And up until this point, pretty much everyone that I talked to had said that season 1 was far worse than season 2. So in one way, I was kind of curious to see somebody who actually prefers season 1 and for what reasons. And she talked about the genre of slice of life and everything, and how actually it was somewhat ruined by the time that all the Felix stuff happened, because obviously that goes into a much grander territory, or much higher stakes or anything. And that's where I do agree. I mean, at the time, when Shiny originally pitched the idea of doing like a summer camp special thing, and then eventually some sort of bad guy, it was originally like a mini series to come out afterwards, but because obviously, you know, I being me, I didn't really want to have anything back into season at the time. I was even against trying to do Through Her Eyes until Aiden convinced me. I'm glad he did in that regard, but yeah. So I turned the camp idea into season 2 somewhat, and then afterwards, like, you know, led up with any other ideas. The boy versus girls thing was all me. That was something that I think was on my mind, actually, particularly because of Roxy and Caroline bringing back those memories and everything of what happened with me in school, and history just repeating itself. If anything, it's somewhat interesting to think about the fact that a lot of the stuff that people complain about Reina for doing actually was affected in Roxy, who is a figure who has lost any and all reputation for many reasons. Also for stuff that Reina would never do. So there you go. And she did. One other thing that Monet actually said was that I wasn't listening to why people told me that they hated Reina. And it was not that I wasn't listening to why people told me they hated Reina. It's just that there was nothing to listen to at the time, because all they would say was they didn't like Reina. And that somewhat didn't even come out, that somewhat came out of nowhere all of a sudden, and then only afterwards, after I started asking people, did they suddenly say, oh, well, it's because of this, that, and the other. It wasn't even a connection to the moment with the whole Julius thing. And so actually, yeah, again, that's why I kept on insisting. It's somewhat interesting, you know, when the same person who tells you that you're not listening only then decides to actually explain themselves so that you can, in a format that you can listen in. That to me will never make sense. So yeah, who knows? And actually, yeah, she actually did we realised that despite the fact that she said before that her reason for hating Reina was different to everyone else's, no, it wasn't, in fact. We discovered that, I think, during the stream, because after the conversation with all this stuff, I hosted a stream in which we asked everyone else, you know, what they thought about the points that Monet had raised, including that one. But yeah, we mentioned this in the stream, that I said that at the time when people, and I asked like all the Reina haters pretty much what they thought. They said that she reminded them of, you know, different people in their lives. And Monet, the one thing that she did do was connect that to the audience. that the gacha audience in general tend to be one particular archetype of people who all end up being bullied by characters who somewhat resemble Reina in a way. She's now basically being referred to as the bully. And in fact, there have been comparisons between her and Pop that I've mentioned that basically makes me feel like, yeah, one is definitely a foil of the other. I showed off their hatred right at the start for each other, but yeah, eventually, as she began to get characterized, it came across like that. I say characterized, and yet there's one thing that Monet said that I categorically disagree with, and that's the fact that both Mutant Girl and Fallen Angels have no characterization. She might have been saying that to actually, not instead of like practically no, she wanted to be more impactful and say none. And she related that to the dialogue, pretty much. And this is where one of the things that I actually looked through. I played a game on the stream, in fact, because she said that the dialogue that a character could say, or like the response they give to a certain stimulus, could be interchanged between quite a few of them. So that, well, obviously it depends. Like, you can't swap out a line that, I don't know, Sebastian says for Empress. I don't know, just running that, or I don't know, maybe ironic enough, a Reina one for Julius, because they were designed as opposites. So with that in mind, we played a game where I actually read out a few bits from the season 3 script that obviously weren't none of the voice actors would have known because they weren't recorded yet, or that the viewers would know because they've seen the show. And we played to see if they could actually guess which characters had actually said that line. I just read it out, and we could see. And the results were about 50-50. I mean, yes, I had to scroll through a few of them because I guess one thing that Monet did latch onto was the fact that situations in the Mutant Girl, some of the characters don't really respond in different ways. But that might also be to do with the fact that she's mentioned that in the slice of life and the moments outside the story that don't really, or that don't further the main plot. I'm getting ahead of myself. I think basically that certain situations, like for example the season 1 where Pete comes in and tries to get help because he knows about Pop and what happened with her. Moena's reaction is different. Reina and Julius kind of like, yeah, we need to sort of need to talk to people. It's one of the times when they could be swapped. But the thing is that if you come to a group of friends with a serious problem, they're most likely going to tell you the same thing. So that's already something else. So I don't know. I want to look more closely at that. Because obviously, going by examples is the best way to do that. I mean, this is where Monet would say to me, research, and that is precisely the way to do that, But I still think that because of, obviously I know what work I put into the characters and what I haven't, and I know their different responses and everything, even though she asked me like, oh, what would happen if it rains, and how would Reina and Pop act differently or something like that. I then gave a description of what Reina would do, and then she went, oh, well, that's partly why people hate her and stuff. Like, okay, we're going to the next point, I suppose. We won't discuss that. And then she left the stream, so I wasn't able to really talk about the characterization with her at the time and really play through the game. But yeah, the game did prove to me that people do know the characters. And for crying out loud, the fact that people were actually there, interested in talking about the Mutant Girl, and she says that people just don't seem to want to watch the show. I think she forgets one thing: that the Mutant Girl, when season 2 was around, was more popular than ever. Although then again, she did sign up at around the same time that she said the plot started going worse, ironically. So what happened before that was that a lot of the videos, you know, they were actually around the double digits, simply, which at the time was okay for me. I just realized I'm running out of memory space, so I'm gonna have to summarize this quickly. But yeah, when season 2 started, and I actually started looking at the way people actually watch the videos, think about the marketing, like she said, the views doubled and then tripled, and now there is no video music go underneath the double digits. So again, it depends on how you categorize that, because it has been rising, but she says the way to actually do that is to regress that somewhat. So in summary, stay tuned for season 3, where we try to actually deal with the aftermaths and then go back to somewhat of the slice of life stuff from before. One thing we can't do because of time is go into filler stuff outside the story, which we would have loved to have done at the time, but that never actually ended up happening because obviously the production. She has agreed with me eventually after that stream that, you know, some trade-off has to actually happen. So who knows? That's been on my mind recently. I'm going to keep looking into that. What do you all think? Please leave a like, subscribe, subscribe if it's already. And on that note, until next time, farewell.